Are you interested in innovative education and diversity in school models? Do you see a need for something different to bring about a reformation in our current education system? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join us for this special summer series where we will introduce you to the HERO Project. HERO stands for Heartland Education Reformation Organization and is focused on providing support for unique faith-based schools. These creative Christian learning environments, such as homeschool co-ops, microschools, and hybrid schools, are popping up all across Kansas and throughout the Heartland. The HERO Project offers continued support for this movement. I am your host, Delina Wallace, founder of the WISE Network and president of AIM Educational Collaborative. Welcome to our summer series of WISE and Otherwise, where we will be highlighting the unique role of the church in supporting a reformation in education through the HERO Project. I'm excited to introduce our next guest. This is Dr. Lisa Dunne. She is just multifaceted and very talented in everything that she's been able to accomplish and do. I hardly know how to introduce her. So we'll start by saying she is a speaker. She is an entrepreneur. She is a school founder, president of a university. Did I mention author? I think I said that already. There's so much you've done. Dr. Lisa, thank you so much for being on this show with us. And please tell us a little bit more. My favorite thing that I think I know that you've done is starting the Academy model. And I'd love to hear about your passion for forming pastor and parent partnerships in education.
Yeah, thank you, Delina, for having me on the show. It's such a joy to get to talk with you. We have so much in common and we have such a shared mission and vision for reaching the next generation. Well, I love the parent-pastor partnership, not only the beautiful alliteration there, poetic, but also just what we're doing and what we're seeing shifting across the United States. When our kids were little, we had stepped into the homeschool arena and saw just tremendous fruit around us from both our mentors and then in our own kids' lives. We're now in those harvest years of them as young adults and really reaping that harvest. And but when they were little, we started these support academies in churches and just saw this incredible program opportunity where pastors and parents could work together to solve the community-based problems, to solve the problem of education. I had been a professor for 25 years, and I saw the brokenness in education because at the college level, you see the cumulative effects of everything that happens from kindergarten to 12th grade. And so I knew that, just as Jesus flipped the temple tables, it was time for us to flip the American classroom. And that's really what we've done. So we've started these academy models in local churches, buildings that are sitting open all week long. We've reclaimed that space and helped pastors to really get engaged with the community on a whole different level. There's a discipleship model that happens. And I can't think of any other program in the world where you can disciple two generations at once and see the kind of fruit that we're seeing socially, academically, mentally, spiritually, relationally. And so out of that came this model for the university. And so we now have preschool parent-directed models all the way through college, taking back education for the next generation.
Wow. I'm just so impressed and just in awe of all that you've been able to accomplish. I know that your faith has really led to this mission. I know that in speaking with you in the past, you really feel like the Lord has called you to this mission. And I get to meet so many different school founders around, but I think that you're kind of leap years ahead of us right now. And I'm just so happy that I've been able to kind of learn more from you. And I'm excited for this relationship, being able to have you cast a vision for what this can look like as you've developed this over the years. Can you tell us a little bit about what the day looks like? So you talked about, would we kind of know these as like a hybrid model school, these academies?
Yeah, that would be more the terminology today. When we started them, none of that existed. This is a pre-charter in the state of California. And I love what you just said, that mentor model is for each one of us, wherever we are in our stage of life, reaching up to someone 10 years older, 15 years older, who has fruit already in their lives. We know a tree by its fruit, right? and then reaching out to somebody who's coming up behind us. And if you think about that culture of women, being able to reach up and reach out, that is such a powerful visual of how we can not feel alone, how we can empower one another, and how we really can shift the culture of our communities. And so kind of a day in the life for all of our academy models, and we started 34 of them across the United States. They are, just like our university model, an accelerated model on campus where there's like-mindedness. We use what we call Socratic methodology, but we say circles instead of rows, dialogue instead of lecture. So it's not these rows and rows. When parents bring their kids home to homeschool, a lot of times they think replication of the public school model, the traditional model of rows and rows and rows, but that's not a relational model. And Gen Zs and Alphas are very relational, and they learn in the context of doing and discussing. And so we have built out these models. If you walk into our preschool room, it's parents and kids sitting on the floor in a circle, reading, talking, and interacting. If you walk into our college classroom, it's a professor and a group of students in a circle, reading, talking, interacting. And so there's this sharpening that takes place that's unlike anything I've witnessed. There's always a professor to student kind of relationship and sharpening, but it opens up that peer-to-peer sharpening. And when you're with like-minded peers who are engaged, who love learning, who are excited about, shifting the culture in their own generation, there's a really powerful impetus in the classroom. And then the other piece of that is that parents are involved. And when we look at the larger system, we see segregation of ages. You're in first grade, you can't talk to a third grader. You're in seventh grade, you can't. We miss the mentor model. And then we have kids coming home and they don't want to talk to their younger siblings because they're, not cool, because they're, instead of what we're, commanded to do, this idea of the filtering down of generational impact and connectivity. And so that day in the life model for college is the 2-day. We do a Tuesday and Thursday model. They have 6 classes, which is a lot. That's 2 more than normal full-time at college. But then they have to learn how to manage their time. And because we've kind of trained them up in this through our other academy models, through high school, they learn self-discipline, self-government. Mm-hmm. They learn the joy of just learning, that there's a joy in growing. And one of the areas that we've seen tremendous results is general education. If you think back to college general education class, I know in my school was 500 students, no relationship with a professor, and you're just taking in information that you think has no relevance to your life. And that's what a lot of colleges are dealing with right now. We've recaptured that so that general education actually has meaning. It has purpose. It has connection to what our founding fathers even wanted us to see in the outcomes of our citizenship. And so I feel like it's shifted so much in our sphere that even what we weren't expecting, but to see the relationship and to see the joy, you look across the media today and you see just college students angry. They're full of angst. They're depressed, anxious, atheists. They're full of bitterness and rage and no sense of identity or purpose. And we're seeing the opposite. Our students are joyful. They're peaceful. They're happy. They're pursuing purpose, and they feel called. They feel compelled to do something to really rescue their generation.
Yes. Well, and I can tell that you feel called and compelled as well, and you've acted on this. What did it look like in the early days as you were launching this program? You were and still are a homeschooling mom, except are your kids all grown?
My youngest is now a junior in college at CVCU.
Okay, amazing. So what was it that compelled you specifically? If you had been homeschooling, why did you see the need? What was it that made you kind of launch this program?
Yeah, one of the things we see with homeschoolers is they're socially and emotionally more mature than their average student, like 3 to 5 grades higher, and then 37 points higher on standardized testing. So they don't quite fit in with that, the peer culture, because they're raised by adults rather than by peers. And so we found the same, and wanting to create a space in the church where parents who felt like they wanted to invest in their kids at this level could come together and encourage and support one another. So our early years in Sacramento, we had a small campus. We started with 30 kids in our first Sacramento campus, and very quickly that grew. That elevated to 5 churches, 500 kids.
Wow.
And then we moved to San Diego. We're able to keep that model going. And of course, in 2020, We had opportunity to open all kinds of other
Mhm.
campuses because parents walked into their kids' rooms and saw what they were actually being taught on Zoom. Things they'd heard rumors of, didn't want to believe, because why would we want to believe
Mhm.
that about the neighborhood school? But they saw it with their own eyes. And so
Right.
they wanted out. Today we have kids who are begging their parents, please, mom, please, dad, please get me out. I feel scared at school. I feel scared in the hallways. I feel scared in the bathrooms. I feel unsafe. There's just so much that's happening to crush the identity and the hope and the purpose of the next generation. And so there are options. And that's what we want parents to know. There
Mhm.
are options. You don't have to be stuck in that situation. Your kids don't have to be stuck in that situation. Looking at the fruit, Delina, it's so tragic seeing, again, that cumulative effect of what's happening in K to 12 right now, and the burden, the pressure, the terror even that it's putting on the hearts of the next generation. And so we have an opportunity to set them free, which I find really exciting. It is a solvable problem.
Right, right. And that's one of the things I love, is that you offer coaching and mentorship for people. So you kind of show them the way. It's not just like, okay, I wanted to do this for my community and my family. And so I started, but I'm not really caring about, growing this movement or investing in others who are trying to start this work. What are some of the ways that you would suggest people to start? Those who might be interested and say, hey, I've always thought of this, or I feel like the Lord is stirring something inside of me. Sometimes it's a pastor or someone at a church saying we want a church school. And other times it's someone like myself, a homeschool mom like yourself, or others. But what are some of those first steps as you begin coaching people?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I think it's really important for parents to realize that there's a lane for everyone. There's
Mm.
something every person can do. Most of the calls that I get are from either a pastor or for a church leader who's seen that there's an opportunity to reach the community. And when most of our academies, they are not just exclusive to that church, they're open to the community. And so we see, when you see 750 kids come out of public school and go into this academy model in one
Mm.
county, you see a shift
Wow.
in the culture, and you can walk into the classroom. I remember one student that he got accepted, and parents are all different situations, and this one was, he had been orphaned and his grandparents were raising him, and he did the typical hoodie over your head teenager, sullen, depressed. And I thought, okay, we'll see if this is.
Mm-hmm.
But sure enough, boy, getting immersed in that culture where he was loved and believed in, and his voice mattered. That's the big thing with Socratic, is his voice mattered. I walked in 6 months later. I walked into a cooking class, a future foodies class, one of our fun
Mm-hmm.
cooking classes. And I thought this student looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. It took me a minute. But all of a sudden I realized this is the same kid. But he looked so different because no hoodie over his head, engaged, joyful, purposeful, connecting. And that's just,
Yes.
I love those testimonies over and over and over. But
Mm-hmm.
when parents get that vision and they see the fruit, the harvest ahead of them, then they can step in. So with the coaching, we have coaching. I have a coaching model where I work with pastors or church leaders, and I just walk them through a 6 month to a year coaching program from envisioning to launching. That's mostly what we do for that coaching level package. But I also work with individual moms who are they're trying to believe God for what it is that they want to do, and trying to hear from him of what lane they could step out into. I have one that I just started a couple months ago that they're all from different churches. It's 5 homeschool moms from different churches. They found a church that was willing to host them, and not even one of their own churches. And we just stepped in and built out this model for them. And so if there is a will, there is a way. We will help you.
Right.
I
Yes.
start with a survey of the general community. And we kind of get a sense of, what are people frustrated about with their local schools? What are they worried about? What are some of the safety issues? What are kids not being taught? What are they being taught that they shouldn't be being taught? And what's parents' involvement ability? And so from there, we typically build out a platform so that they can reach their community. They can, again, take in students into those open buildings. And all you need, if you're a pastor listening in, you have a room. You just need a room. You don't think in terms of, it's not rows of desks. It's like a small group
Right.
environment where students are
Mm-hmm.
connecting. We recommend not more than 15 in a classroom at a time, so that there
Mm-hmm.
is that relational build out. But there's something for everybody.
Right.
There are options, there are lanes, and again, it's a solvable problem.
Right. And you've mentioned, so the one group of ladies, they were 5 moms who concerned and activated and ready to get started. And they were looking for a space. And it wasn't a space that was one of their own, like their own home church did not open their doors. So tell me a little bit, can you speak to that? Because I have been hearing that it can be difficult for people when they approach their home church or their community church, asking, can we use your space? Can you speak a little bit to that, the need, and maybe direct towards the pastors and the churches of how this is a ministry opportunity?
Absolutely. And I meet with pastors and boards. And what I found is that a lot of times if there's a concerned parent who's excited about it, the pastor knows, he's aware, obviously, of the challenges that are going on in the community. But sometimes it helps to have someone outside of the circle be able to speak life into that, prophet without honor his own country kind of thing, his own city kind of thing. So being able to have that person outside of that is helpful. So I'll sit down with the board, with the pastors, anybody in the church leadership team that wants to make that decision. And one of the things we do for pastors is we don't put more work on pastors. They're already busy. They already have a full-time job caring for their flock. We armor bearer for the pastors, and I set up what I call a site director, and that's someone who carries the vision of the church. If you're in a church, your own church, carries the vision of the church and is able to create a pathway. For example, I had a church that was really art-centric. They did a lot of outreach plays and musicals and really impacting their community. So when we built their academy, we put into the classes those types of courses. And my son, who is a filmmaker, was able to teach junior high boys and a junior high class, and he was able to scout some of the talent in there, train them up so that now they're serving. They started serving in church. One of them actually got hired as a contractor in this large church at age 16. Just the talent that's in the house. And I think that's the other really cool thing that comes out of the church-based pieces is every church has gold in it. You have people in your church who are just waiting to be asked. So if you're getting pushback from a pastor, go to academicrescuemission.com, DM me on Instagram at Dr. Lisa Dunne, however you want to contact me, and check out, contact me and let me know you want help, you need help. I'll meet with your pastoral team. I'll share the success stories. My husband's a pastor. We've walked through this for 20 years. So we understand the obstacles, the fears, they're real fears. We get that. But we also know that God is making a way. Parents across the United States, we just see this movement, the Luke 1:17 movement of God restoring the hearts of the fathers to the children and the children to the fathers. And again, the 2 generations of discipleship that's provided by the model really opens that up, really unlocks that. So I'll meet with your pastor. I'll meet with your church board. I will help get them over the line. If you're a pastor listening to this, we will armor bearer for you. We will protect your schedule. We're going to carry out your vision in your house and reach your community for the kingdom of God.
That is so wonderful. What an amazing service to offer. So I'm curious, when we talk about this pastor-parent partnership, and churches who are opening their doors and allowing the school to meet there, beyond those 2 things, like, can you flesh that out, what it looks like? You've mentioned that you don't want to put on too much responsibility on the pastor himself. What exactly would be the church's role beyond just opening their doors? Are there more things to it?
Yeah. So when the church vision piece actually came, my husband is British. And one time when we were in England and we were just walking along the beautiful villages, and I noticed that every village we went to, everywhere you looked, you could see a church. The church was centric to the culture. And of course, many of them have fallen away now, but the symbolism there was so powerful to me. And I thought having the church as the base, as the home base for not only academia, which we have lost that moral authority of the church, that academic authority in our larger culture, but restoring that as a center point, but the point of relationships, the connectivity that moms crave, that moms need, that support. They're not alone. The church, the responsibilities can vary. In our model, it really is just the vision of the pastor. I help the site director execute that at the local level. But there are a couple of academy models, in our model that the pastor wanted to be more involved. I have one where it's a lifelong homeschooling pastor, and he wanted to have he even wanted to teach in the classes. I'm not micromanaging them. If they want to do that, that's great. But I am going to try to protect their schedule if that's what they want. And most of the pastors do. They want to use their building. They want to see their communities shifted for the kingdom. They see the anxiety, the depression, the suicide ideation in this next generation. It's compelling. If you're a shepherd, you're compelled to want to help your flock. And so for most pastors, they want us to protect their schedule. And so we have a system that does that. It's hundreds of pages of documents we've developed over the last 20 years. It's individually tailored to your church, but it's everything you need to be able to launch. You don't have to invent everything. You don't have to come up with anything. And then we're here to coach you so that you're not alone. It's just it's an empowering model. It gives you the foundation you need to be able to impact your culture without taxing your staff, which is important to a church. The other exciting thing is it opens up not only the community for parents, but also it opens up the opportunity for people to have a job. Now there are different models. There are like micro school models in people's homes, where maybe they're not charging a tuition, but charging a little bit of tuition and then having all that tuition go to the teachers and the site directors, the mentors in the environment. You're also honoring those who are serving and partnering with you. And so it's this affordable, flexible, biblically based model that helps create that kind of partnership. Now, I love when pastors or youth pastors want to come in and lead a chapel service or teach a class, but that's not a requirement. Really, all churches need to do is be willing to open their doors a couple days a week, 2 days a week, 1 day a week, 3 days a week. That's all they need to be able to do is open their doors and use their building as another extension for the kingdom.
That's great. Yes, I agree. So as we're looking at various school models, and I've just really picked up on the diversity that's out there. Like everyone has their own unique flavor, they're all serving the needs of their community. Oftentimes it's the parents who are the school founders, and they are serving their needs of their children. And so kind of working the schedule around what fits their family. And then you have those who are like, we have a classical education, or we have arts-based or nature-based, or we have, this or that. Everyone has kind of like their different flavor and their different schedule. I love how you mentioned that you don't micromanage that, basically what you're doing is you're providing the tools and the vision. You're empowering these school founders to be autonomous and to kind of do their thing. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the unique schools that you've helped to launch and maybe how they differ from each other?
Yeah, and I think that's such an important point. When we first started out, 22 years ago or whatever, we actually ran everything for every church. And about halfway through that point, I realized I am not honoring the whole individuality of the homeschool movement is to individualize education. And so to create a community-based response to the need of your community is much more effective. So about a decade ago, we switched that model to really focusing on the individualized needs of the church. The different kinds of schools. I mean, we have some that are a very arts focused, a lot that are arts focused. Having outreach films and plays and musicals, and one in Texas that's in a very art-centric community. So to be able to offer that in their church, teachers of music and piano and things. Others are more marketplace focused. Like we have several we have mini makers clubs and entrepreneurship. Even at our own campus in Chula Vista, we have a preschool to college model here. And our academy students did an entrepreneurship class, and they made things that they sold at the end of the semester. We had a big fair, and parents came and supported. So they got to experience what it's like to do a cost analysis and create your website and create business cards and market your product. And so, they're 7 years old and they're doing all these, so that was a really big heart and vision of that particular location. So everyone is different. The major ones that we see in terms of anchor focus are the arts or the business focus kind of future entrepreneurs. Both really powerful models, but again, we really try to tailor with the needs. I have some communities where life skills are really important. So we'll have a class where, a dad drives up his big truck to the back of the campus and it opens the hood and shows the kids, here's how you change the oil and here's how you change the tire. And we think that should be obvious stuff. But a lot of times as parents, we don't think about that. I know for me, when my kids were getting into biology, and I was thinking, I don't honestly want to dissect a frog on my kitchen table. Like, that's not of
Yeah.
interest to me at all. And so there are nurses in our church that love, for whatever reason, dissecting frogs. And so there's gold around you. And I think having that partnership opportunity, and I think too, just from the homeschool perspective, parents can share the load. I know my husband did all the math and music, and that was a blessing to me. And then my kids got both of us rather than just one of us, which I think was a great balance for them as well. And again, we're in the harvest years now because we just graduated our last homeschooler 2 years ago. And so, seeing that fruit and hearing them talk about their experience with other young adults, and the stability of identity is really what I see as a main marker of difference right now in kids that have been parented through the academic discipleship model that we call homeschooling.
That is so, I love it. I love it. And with the idea of the diversity and how every school can be unique, do they all start serving all grade levels at once, or do they sometimes grow into that?
That's a great question too. So every city is different. Across the board, we see a lot of interest in K-3. However, we have some schools, like one we just started, that just wanted to start a high school because their kids were going into high school and they wanted to have a unique opportunity for their own students. So they're creating that community right now to launch in fall. And so I love the mentor model. Our most common one is K-6, or preschool to 6 if you have a parent involved preschool model. So having those older kids be able to mentor youngers, to hear a 6th grader read an essay aloud, a 3rd grader is listening and thinking, I could do better. It's comparative benchmarking. It's powerful. It's a helpful way for us to mentor one another. And then older students naturally feel that leadership compulsion like an older brother should feel, right? In a generationally segregated model. And so every school is different. And what we do is look at, with the survey, we ask parents, how many K-3 do you have in your home? How many 4th to 6th grade? How many high school? How many junior high? What are the problems you see with their current school? We ask all these surveys. So we have what's called data-driven decision making. That is, you're not just thinking, I guess there are people out there that are interested. You're looking at the survey data, and then we're building around the answers to how your community responded to that interview or to that, survey question.
Right. No, that totally makes sense. I love that. Okay. So another question just about kind of the basics. Are they being taught every subject, or is it kind of like whatever, again, the needs of the community and the families that are involved?
That's a great question too. So generally we'll offer a core and an elective. The cores are, all of your math, science, English, history, Bible, your main subjects. And if you have a community of people who are already homeschooling, they probably have core programming that they love, and they don't want to switch out of that just to come to your Homeschool Support Academy. But if you have brand new homeschoolers, like we had, 96% of our homeschoolers in 2020 in the new academies were straight out of public school. So they had no experience in assigning work, having an academic discussion with their kids in that sense. It's really new for them. And so they needed core stuff. They needed the core subjects. Typically your lifelong homeschoolers, they might want the elective subjects. We have over 200 courses that we offer through electives and cores. And then there are so many great curricula that we can help parents piecemeal. So obviously there's a lot of coaching with parents in every site. There's a lot of encouraging in that regard. But my encouragement to sites is to set up a core block and an elective block so that you can meet the needs of both your traditional lifelong homeschoolers and your new homeschoolers. And electives can be things like choir and drama, and like I mentioned, our future foodies class, our life skills class. We have hundreds of those, a couple hundred of those, to choose from. And that just creates a dynamic in the room for kids to get excited. We all want our kids to be intrinsically motivated. But intrinsic motivation comes from curiosity and wonder. And if we're just boring kids all day long, every day, they're not going to be curious, and they're not going to be pursuing anything wonderful. They're not going to feel like they're autonomous. They're able to do anything efficacious. So all those things work against intrinsic motivation. So if we want intrinsic motivation, we got to change the way that we're educating. And I don't feel like it's too dramatic to say that if we do not shift the culture of education, we will lose the next generation. I think we see that, again, look at the colleges right now, what's happening in America. we have lost a generation. We have to pull them back. We have a conference on my latest book. I know we've talked about this many times, but Outsourced: Why America's Kids Need an Education Revolution. And revolution is not too strong of a word. We need to flip the temple tables, friends. We need to get the next generation back. We need to reclaim them for the kingdom.
Yes, yes. So as we're wrapping up here, and if I were a pastor or someone interested in starting a school, I know I'd be very curious, like, what is this going to cost? What are the initial upfront cost and investment that's required in launching a school? And then what about sustainability and tuition and that sort of thing? Like, can we even afford to launch this?
Yeah, so that's one of the beauties of the model. So we've built in a model that is completely self-funding. And because it's not expensive like a public or like a private school, parents can afford to homeschool. And this is a really important one to protect. It's built on a model of tens. We need 6 students to break even, but you need 10 students to pay what I call a site director and a teacher, a tutor. And so everything is completely self-funding. And we work with pastors on what are your needs locally? We look at the hourly wage in your particular demographic area, your socioeconomic status, and we tailor to that. But you want to bless your mentors, your site director and your mentors or teachers, but you don't want to charge too much. And so we've been able to navigate that balance so the parents feel blessed because they're giving to something that's not unaffordable. It's not unattainable. It's not a ridiculous. I mean, our private schools in California, high school is $20,000 in our city. That's insane. And so to be able to offer something that's a couple $1,000s a year instead of $20,000 a year, that makes it, giving them monthly payment options. And then all of that money going to the church itself or to the entity. If you're like my 5 mamas at the other school, to that entity that we've formed with them. And we help them form either an LLC or a nonprofit. I know you probably talk on your show about 508s already, but we help them form that as well. So they've got some governing documents if they're outside of the church umbrella. Most of our academies are under the church umbrella. And so that is, it's just a ministry and outreach of the church. It's really simple. It's not difficult. And you've got a coach, you've got a team behind you. If you're looking around your city right now and you're thinking, wow, I'm so tired of kids graffitiing and breaking into the stores. And I'm so tired of hearing about the tragic rates of bullying and depression and anxiety in the next generation. We can do something about it. We can shift the culture of education, and that's going to impact the trajectory of the next generation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lisa. I appreciate you speaking to this. You hit so many points. I know I've introduced you and we've been talking about the Hero Project, Heartland Education Reformation Organization. And we're so passionate about helping people to launch the schools, providing quality, low cost, high quality Christian education. And your model definitely kind of shows us the way to do that. And I appreciate your mentorship and the coaching that you provide. And thank you so much for being on the show today. If our listeners want to get in touch with you and learn more about what you do, would you give us all your contact information?
Absolutely. Thank you, Delina. So for the college model, which I know we didn't get to talk a lot about, but we offer college classes as well on your church site. So you can anything from trades through graduate school degrees. You can see the model of that at cbcu.us, Charlie Victor, as in Chula Vista Christian University.us, United States. And at the academy level for Startup Your Academy, academicrescuemission.com. And we'll walk you through. Again, reach out. If you fill out the website form, we'll reach out to you. We'll share with you what the model looks like. You can see some video clips and other things in our behind the scenes pages. And we'd love to encourage you, to inspire you to be a difference maker. We can complain about it. We can be part of the problem, or we can be part of the solution. And I think everybody has an opportunity to be some part of the solution today.
Absolutely. I agree. Well, thank you so much again. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you to our listeners for joining in. And again, that's Dr. Lisa Dunne. You can find her at Academic Rescue Mission. Is that right?
Thanks, Delina. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you. Bye.